He's like, let's see how long we can stay here before they kick us out. My friends and I, we all love our racing stuff, and we've done lots of racing schools, and I live up in the Northeast, so Lime Rock Racetrack in Connecticut is one of our usual go-tos. And we do the Skip Barber Racing School, which is, a headquarter there. We wanted to put together a day where a few of us came together, and we actually were going to see if we could make it our own thing, 5 or 6 of us, and we get a little time. We know a lot of the instructors personally, just kind of set it up as a personal driving school thing. It was my friend's idea, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea, and it's also hard to get us all together now because we have kids and the whole thing, and I'm like, we have to plan that kind of thing to have it happen. It's not spontaneous. He calls me back a week later, and he's like, it's not going so good. He goes, so-and-so and so-and-so can't go. They're not willing to fly in for it, and da-da-da, whatever. But there's an open house. The open houses are when the race school sends out, they have a day where they just open everything up, send an invite to every past student, have you come in, you wait on lines forever. There's an autocross track, there's the skid pad, there's the big course, and some car companies advertise their stuff, like the new Lexus F race stuff was there, Porsche 911s, there's Viper, and so it's kind of this chance for sponsors to, get people to drive your stuff and get people amped up, and then they get you to sign up for a race school at the end of the day. But it's mostly standing around in line. That's really, you spend most of your time standing outside in line like you're at Disneyland, right? So I was like, all right, I'll do it. Let's do it. And usually for these things, they're so packed. It's not only the main parking lot filled, but the outer fields and the whatever, So I pull into the park, and I'm like, I go past the first big field where a lot of times cars are parked, and there's nothing there. And I'm like, oh crap, I have the wrong day, whatever. And I come in closer, and there's nothing in the parking lot. And so I drive all the way to the infield where they have the main clubhouse and stuff. And so that parking lot has a bunch of cars in it. So I'm like, all right, well, let me go down to the clubhouse and see. And so I drive down there, and I see my friend's car, his WRX, and then I see the other cars. And, normally you'd expect to see, modified Honda Civics and just all kinds of weird stuff, and a few really nice cars. These are all Maserati Quattroportes, Porsche Panameras, and a Lamborghini, and I'm like, what is going on? It's all these really high-end cars, but they're dirty. They don't look nice. They're not there to show. They look kind of it's a Maserati Quattroporte with mud on the side. I'm like, this is weird. But my friend's car's there, so I'm like, and nobody's outside. So I go in the clubhouse and I walk in, and there's these 2 women sitting there behind this table, and they're dressed very nice business attire. And they're like, what company are you with? And I'm dressed like this. I have sneakers on. I had my jeans with rips and the black leather jacket. And they're like, well, what company are you with? And I was like, what? And they're like, what company are you with? And I'm like, well, my company's Apex Ridge Reliability. It's an engineering company. I'm like, how would they know this? Why would he have, And they're like, oh, you're not on here. And then I see my friend come running down the hallway. And he's like, oh, and he goes, and he, gives his company name. He's like, oh, and they're like, oh, okay, right, let me through. And I'm like, what is going on? Now, we walk back to where the main eating area is, and usually you can imagine with a bunch of just punk kids that they've given a free driving, they do is cookies and whatever. This looks like a wedding banquet. There is the guy in the white chef thing cutting the meat for people, and all these guys in suits talking. I'm like, what is going on? He's like, I don't know. He's like, this is an executive meet and greet that they're doing they're doing an open day for. All these guys are the big business guys who do the sponsorships and coordinate the big race stuff. And he goes, I don't know why we're here for this one, this open house for this, but he's like, we are. And I'm like, how did you do it? He's like, I don't know. So I'm like, what do we do? Should I just leave or whatever? And he's like, let's see how long we can stay here before they kick us out. And I'm like, all right, we could Rodney Dangerfield this thing. Let's see what happens. By the way, that chef thing wasn't even lunch. That was just the welcoming thing. So we ate our food and acted all cool and talked to people a little bit. They had the autocross track out there with the cars, and they had the instructors out there. We knew a lot of these guys. What dawned on me at that point was all these people here for this open house weren't going to drive. They didn't care. They were there to make business deals. So none of them were doing stuff. A few of them would go out and do a couple things, but there weren't normally the half hour, 45-minute waiting line. I'm talking 2 people standing in front of you for 2 cars, right? So you're basically, I'm kind of do we just get shameless and just go for this? And we're like, yeah, we're totally just gonna go shameless. So we did a kid at an empty Disneyland. You get in the car, we go thrash around, get off, get back in, go to the cars. We started doing, we're already getting a little bit of looks. But then I kind of also realized nobody's really said anything to us. And I'm like, you know what? They probably think we're like Silicon Valley startup, like gazillionaire, like, and you know, we're looking to invest in some race thing or whatever. So I'm like, yeah, we're totally just gonna see how far we can run with this. So we were out there at one point and he had the Porsche 911, I had the new Lexus thing, and we were dicing each other coming up close. And we had the instructors in the passenger seat. And these guys know at this point we're not supposed to be there, and some of them, you know, did know us. Then next I went over to the skid pad. You remember the scene from like the Dukes of Hazzard movie, you know, with Jessica Simpson and Johnny Knoxville, where they're in the big rotary and they're just going around and around and around till like Johnny Knoxville's gonna puke out of the passenger seat? Well, I decided to do that. So I went around a few times and I was keeping a drift for the whole thing perfectly, you know, and I was like, oh my God, I've never done that there. The guy in the passenger seat looks like he's gonna puke. So he actually I stopped and he got out, and then I just had it for my own, right? So a skid pad, and I'm just going around and around drifting, and I'm getting smoke off because half it had dried off mostly at that point. And then I hear ka-thunk, and I was like, oh no, like did the suspension break off or what'd I do? And I pull off and I look, and a huge chunk of the tire tread had come off. It looked like on the highway, like the 18-wheelers when they lose the tread, you know, and it had slapped up into the, you know, you can picture it slapped up into the back bumper and the wheel well or whatever. And I got out and I looked and I was like, that thing's defective. Somebody should write a letter. And I just walked off. And then we get to lunch, right? I see it and I can't believe it. And it's Skip Barber. Like, the Skip Barber is sitting there having lunch. Like, this is the guy who basically personally invited all these people. And at this point, I'm like, I can get away with anything now. I'm like, I can't believe that we're even still here. I'm like, I'm just gonna keep pushing it. So I get my lunch and there's a seat open next to him and I just sit down and I'm like, hey, Skip. And he's like, hi. And you could tell he was trying to do that thing where he's like, do I know you? Do I recognize you? You know, in his mind, he's probably going through the invite list, right? And I'm like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm Adam. And, you know, I'm like, how's the Ferrari 275, you know, GTB doing or whatever? You know, and he's like thinking in his head like we talked about it before. Just because I've studied him so well, I know that he just had restored one and whatever and everything. Because he actually did an interview on it for Petrolicious. So I knew, so I started talking about the car and everything. So he just kind of was like, all right, you know, whatever. And I still, to this day, I have no idea how we ended up at that. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Like, he called to arrange a personal thing. That didn't happen. She invited us and put us on the open house list for this executive thing. So all I can think is she did it and then quit 10 minutes later. Like, screw you guys, I'm quitting anyway. I'm gonna just, this guy on the phone, I'm gonna put it on. I don't get it. I really don't know. It was either her first day or her last day. That's the best I can figure, so. Never got kicked out. And me and this friend, at this point, we're just giddy. We're two kids who've been in Disneyland and allowed to abuse, you know, the rides. I mean, I'm a reliability engineer by profession, so people hire me to break their stuff to design it better. I wasn't invited in this case to do it, but I did my best. The instructors all wanted to go out and dice with each other. So all 4 cars, and dice means like you're on top of each other, like you're like willing to trade paint a little bit, you know. Just before the straightaway, you drop down this hill and it bites hard and you turn right into the straightaway. And if you were to do this in a Porsche 911, those who know 911s, they have what's called trailing throttle oversteer, which is basically a fear sensor, right? It's like a wild animal sensing fear. And the trailing throttle oversteer is if you take a Porsche and you throw it into a corner hard, as long as you stay on the gas, it'll bite in and perform amazing. If you lift your foot off, because the way the motor is mounted in the back of the car, it'll spin around on you. So if it senses fear and you chicken out and take your foot off. So this friend many years ago had his 82 911 and he came down in there and he lifted. And the car spun around, hit the guardrail, went down the whole straightaway backwards down the guardrail. Me and a bunch of other friends rebuilt the car for him. We ended up getting another chassis and swapping all the parts over. Now I cut off the car. I cut off the whole side of the car so he could put it on the wall in his garage. And he didn't want to. So it's on the wall in my workshop, this whole car. So here we are now coming down and I'm looking at this turn and we come in, we're with each other and I'm right behind him. And as we come in, we touched bumpers. We weren't driving the passenger seat and his car started to, the back came out just as he's going down to the part where it bites. And I just had that moment, I'm like, holy crap, I'm gonna witness exactly what he did before and witness it again. But the guy was good enough, he caught it. We came in, that's it, we're like, all right, that's it. Now we're done for the day. And we walked out of there looking at each other in just total disbelief at the day we just had.
Shrewd negotiation starts with finding the right car, and the best way to do that is with Autotempest.com. AutoTempest allows you to compare the results from Craigslist nationally with all the top listing sites. So visit Autotempest.com today and see where your next dream car is hiding.